Welcome to Northern Star. It's Friday, it's 8 o'clock, bizarrely enough. And we have today, We Are Kin, and we're going to talk about their brand new album, And I Know. So we'll start off with...
Hi there, I'm Gary, I play the drums and I work on sound engineering.
I'm Emma and I'm vocals, purely.
I'm Lee, I play bass.
And I'm Dan and I do guitar and keyboards.
So Dan's greedy.
A little bit. Oh, and a tiny bit of singing.
Tiny bit of singing.
Tiny
right,
bit of
okay.
singing.
Right, shut up, Dan. Sorry, that's an in-joke. Right, so what we're going to do is we're here to launch the We Are Kin's latest album, the follow-up to Pandora. And this is the opening track, and it's called That One Day.
One of my favourite bits on this is the little glass smash that Gary does on the drums. He gets like...
You can hear it in the background just here, on the sort of downbeat every bar or so. It was a complete accident. I
Broke some
I
glass.
just put that like dirty drum kit on, and then that sort of underneath the real drums there's like a little drum kit, and you can hear that there.
It's a little drum kit, but is this the guide rhythm?
It kind of was actually, yeah.
Well,
it was never really...
The whole album, well, Pandora was generally done on his real drum kit. But this whole album was basically done on that little pad over there.
Yeah.
Pretty much this time, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I was going to use my real drums, but the trouble was finding the consistency between the tracks that had real drums on and the tracks that had...
That was you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thank God for that.
I didn't want it to be... like you'd get a track where you'd have like my real drums on, and a track that you had some sequence drums on, and I felt that was just too different.
Yeah,
and the album needed to have coherence.
We did that on Pandora. There was like 2 or 3 tracks that were electric, the rest were acoustic, weren't they?
Yeah.
And it worked, but for some reason it didn't work in the same way when we did this one.
No, but I think that's because generally the album feels more coherent anyway.
Well, I did. That's the first thing I said to Dan when I heard it. It feels to me like a band, but I want to talk about that a bit later on. It feels a lot more like a unit rather than a bunch of musicians getting together and making some music. I know that sounds...
It does feel like that.
Because it's less me and Dan
and
some other arbitrary musicians turning up and playing what they want.
Do this.
And more.
That's possibly the nicest thing you've ever said.
4 people in a room actually wanting to create the same piece of music.
Yeah, there's a guy...
And contributing something to that.
Boom, boom. I picked up a
How
bendy
do you
bully
all
last
get
week,
in
you know.
this room?
Well, we're in here now.
Yeah, I mean, to
And you're in here as well.
play.
It's not. With the four of us, it's
alright,
good. The
yeah,
four of us
it's
is fine.
fine,
When it
really.
was more of us, it was a bit tight.
Yeah.
We did have 6 people rehearsing in here quite regularly for a while.
Yeah.
I always just have to watch where I stick the headstock on the bass.
Yeah,
Then you
turning
get
around and stuff when you got the guitar. You
Yeah,
clap.
can't do it
in-
quickly.
in the head.
And the keyboards are against the wall, not facing into the room. You know, don't look at
Yeah,
me.
you-
Don't look at me.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
Never saw anybody when you.
And I know that one day I'll have to say goodbye. Give me the strength to say goodbye. I was mine to do my own thing. Before you,
Right, tell us about the lyric.
Well, my daughter Grace, when she was born, it was really quite problematic. She clung on for dear life. She wasn't going to give up. She had. She's alive, by the way. Don't worry. But
This is not going to be a 3 hanky story then.
No.
It could have been, but
She
it isn't.
didn't want to be born, so we went 2 weeks over. Sandra, my wife, tried to have her waters broke. That didn't work. Nothing worked. So in the end, there was an elective emergency C-section. That happened. Grace was taken away. She was blue. She was just carted off. So my wife had an emergency section. She was carted off one way. Grace, we didn't even know what we were given at that time. We didn't know if we had a boy or a girl. The only reason I knew is because the doctor said, "You're going to have to help her. She can't breathe." So she was carted off one way. My wife was carted off the other way, and I was left in an operating theatre in Halifax. And I thought, well, what the hell do I do here? Anyway, ultimately she was taken into intensive care, and she was in an incubator, and I got to see her for the first time. She was all tubed up and all that sort of thing. So we spent about 3 or 4, 5 months trying to get her to the right kind of place, and it was fine. So after that we went for a little holiday into Wales, and Sandra and Grace went to sleep one afternoon, and I just sat out looking out over Snowdonia having a wild time. It was nice, it was sunny and all that, and I just thought I'd write something because I had nothing else to do, because they'd gone to sleep, you can't do it. I was just sitting around for a few hours, and that the one thing that was playing on my mind the whole time was, I've got this daughter now, one day I'm going to have to say goodbye to her. So this was in 2008 I wrote this. And I just wrote, I don't know, one day I'm going to have to say goodbye, and I then talked through the fact that when she was born, I couldn't touch her, but I felt her, I knew she was there, I knew she was going to be alright, and it took about 3 or 4 days for me to get past the fact that I could touch her, and in that time, I couldn't really talk to Sandra because she would get post-operative. Grace was in intensive care, and it was a bit of a mishmash of emotions. So I wrote that piece there and then, because my immediate thought was, there was such an outpouring of emotion at that point. I love this girl with all my heart. How will I ever be able to say goodbye? I don't know. I'm going to need strength to do that sort of thing. And that's what came out. I just wrote it in about 10 minutes.
It's always the best things are like that, though, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just there, aren't they?
So it came really from the heart, and it came really.
Absolutely,
it actually stands out in the song.
And it sat there in a little black notebook for
Almost a decade.
8 years, yeah, nearly a decade. And then just when I joined the band, which was originally I joined to start gigging Pandora, didn't I? That was the point of it, and we were talking about a second album at that point. And I thought, I've got some lyrics, so I just Facebook messaged them over to you, and you started tinkering on the piano, and it became that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they came to some good.
Yeah.
Chuffed to bits.
It's what's interesting about it was that the story, if you like, of the whole album already existed, but this actually became the point of it. That whole lyric became the
fulcrum.
Totally, and it was out of left field. Like, it wasn't planned or anything. It was just like, Lee said, I've got some words, and we looked at them and went, shit, this is kind of beep. Sorry, this is kind of what it's. Reading it felt relatable, but I didn't even know the story of really what it was about at the time. I just read it and thought, this actually applies to what we're writing music about right now, which was strange. And then knowing the story about it behind it, when I listen to it, I now think of that rather than the story of the album, because even though it's not my story, it still has a deeper meaning as a result, which is kind of weird, you know.
Is this true of all the songs, that there's sort of a parallel meaning, parallel path? You've got the picture of the album, but you haven't, and maybe each of the songs have got their own separate piece, separate meaning, separate content?
I would say so.
Yeah. Because
would.
we've all sort of contributed to the lyrics, the three of us. There's some really sort of different things in there and different flavours, but then I think they're kind of thematically linked in their sense. They kind of deal a lot with like life and death and things like that. So I think it's kind of it's linked, but then there's been kind of lots of different sort of ideas behind them as well.
It goes back to what Gary said about when we were writing Pandora, what the whole approach with telling the story was about. I mean, I was kind of like kitchen sink it and I just tell it all, like, kind of thing, and Gary's approach was the complete opposite.
So,
well, I just, for me, I think the best albums are ambiguous. They might have a meaning underneath them. The people who wrote them probably know exactly what they're about, but as a listener, you can make your own story up. You could delve in and find out what the story is if there's enough, content out on the internet and stuff. I just wanted to offer the listener some opportunity to do what they, to put their own thoughts onto it rather than dictate it. Because War of the Worlds is a narrative piece that's clearly, you know what's going on in there. This is the story. There's no ambiguity there. Whereas this is not. And it, we started with that in mind actually, because we all like War of the Worlds, but actually in the end,
Dun, dun, dun.
it didn't feel like the right thing in the end.
So that was that one day.
Yeah.
That I didn't know this was your lyric, Lee. I really didn't know, and that's really interesting. So you mentioned Pandora, so we'll get Pandora out the box and put it back in the box if you like. Pandora is the album that I heard thanks to David Elliott quite a while ago now. I'm not even going to guess at the date because it must have been a Wednesday because I was travelling to London. I always travel to London on a Wednesday. And Dave Elliott from Bad Elephant Music sent me the album.
Was it before we were with them? And was it after we joined them? Do you know?
You hadn't been announced as part of the part of them.
Because we went and re-recorded Pandora in quite a few different ways. So I bet it was the original Pandora.
So I've got the original Pandora.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise.
It'll be worth something.
It's a digital file. How can it be rare? It can be replicated.
Well, because we removed it now, in theory. Because when me and Dan just one evening said, right, for goodness sake, we've been fannying about with this album for long enough. I'm drawing a line tonight. It's going online. It's going on Bandcamp. We just.
That was our album.
I just went in the lounge and went, take a picture of that picture on my wall, which was like I got it from I don't know,
Is that the circuit
IKEA or
board
something.
picture?
No, this is the original one, you see.
You probably won't have seen this.
So it was just this messy picture thing. We just shoved a filter across it on Photoshop, uploaded it, went, whatever, done. And then...
And I was like, Gary, you got to share it on Facebook. He's like, nah.
People will like it, they won't.
So how were they supposed to hear it?
Exactly.
Well, anyhow,
Not being picky.
obviously Bad Elephant came along and all that happened, and then we did the circuit board and we took it very seriously and we got other singers involved. And
It's not to say we didn't to start with. It was just that we honestly didn't know what to do with it. I think.
No,
we'd been sat in here in this very room for 18 months writing it and making it. Then we finished it and we didn't know what the hell to do afterwards. It was like, oh, well, we've got
Yeah.
it. We need to put it somewhere. Bandcamp's a thing. So
Yeah.
we stuck it there, and then it was like, oh, that's done. What do we do next?
We did actually pay for it to go on like Amazon and Google Play and all that
Did
as
we?
well. Yeah,
I
yeah,
forgot.
we
Oh
forked
yeah,
out for that.
yeah. You're right.
But,
We did. Yeah. We
You
did.
know, you need the backing of. Well, I think you need the backing of a label, in order to get give you some credibility. I think.
Credibility and noticed.
Yeah, because there's so many bands out there. There is a noise of music.
And
How
a
do
ton of
I know
amazing
as a
bands as
punter
well.
what band I should listen to? You know, I either take a recommendation from a friend, or I go, well, I know I like Bad Elephant's signings. You know, their other bands have been good. Oh, they've got a new one. Let's have a listen.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I'm going to discover that music.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most important reasons, I think.
Yeah. So what is the story of Pandora?
Interesting.
The actual narrative of Pandora.
How long
not,
have we got?
not how it was made. We haven't got all night.
Just do the short version.
I'll do the short version. No, the story of Pandora is basically about a guy who has essentially become a very high-powered corporate individual who's kind of in charge of the country, which is quite funny considering recent events. Anyway, yeah, it's sort of future-based and it links into creating artificial intelligence to help run society and control anything from social systems, police systems, and so on. Traffic, airlines, all that stuff. Everything's run by a supercomputer, but it becomes self-aware, and it's about that character along with the AI is created. They sort of merge into one being, and then it goes through what happens as a result of that.
Read a lot of William Gibson, do you?
I don't, but I've been told that. It's very. I guess it's very of the.
The cyberpunk feel.
Yeah, and it is. I like all that, and that was very much where it came from. But the twist on it is without sort of like So there's only for, as we said before, it's like it's there. All this information is right there in front of you. If you want to find it, you just have to pay attention to it. If you don't, it just will fly straight over you, and you can listen to the music. Just take it as it is. But the back end of the story is the idea that the AI essentially becomes self-aware and ends up having a conscience and ends up becoming almost more human than a human. So rather than being your typical AI, which is, just goes a bit nuts and iRobot.
Bit 2112.
Yeah, just destroys everything and decides humans no longer should exist because of ethics or whatever. And essentially has empathy. And that's kind of where the story ends. Of Pandora is the end of the song The Door. The lyrics in that are about Pandora becoming self-aware as an actual individual sentient being, an empathetic sentient
So who's
being.
Isaac?
Isaac is the character who created Pandora. And that's what the story of Pandora kind of follows, that character who is played by Alex Dunedin, who's a good mate of ours we've known for years. And he brought the whole thing to life.
I tend to refer to him as our creative director.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
He really did. Just having Alex in the room can have
amazing,
an impact, even if he doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of ideas, and he's so intelligent, and his knowledge is just about everything. It's just fantastic.
General knowledge. I've never.
You'll
come
just
across anyone like him.
mention something, and he will go, well, actually, I know about this and this and this, and you'll learn so much.
And it's not intrusive, is it?
No, it's not in a sort of, oh god, he's banging on again. It's not like that at all. It is. I just want to hear him talk.
Yeah.
I I want to listen to that man because I will learn when he talks.
He's also got one of those voices.
Yes, he has. Yeah.
I mean, having that kind of voice is a bit of a gift.
It is. If there was an apocalypse, I'd want him to tell me about it.
Yeah.
His voice, like, some people say it's like Brian Perkins, or a newsreader from the good old days when we speak like this.
Terribly BBC marbles in the mouth kind of thing.
Alex is, he's got that soft.
He's really lilt. But what I liked about it was that the whole point of it, because me and him talked at length about what this guy was and who he was.
The idea is simple. A perfect world. That's what we're here to make. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here. That's what we're gonna set out to do. It's not easy. Nothing good is easy. It always will always cost. But think of where we're going. I want you to think of that perfect world. There's so much to do. And we've got everything going for us. We need to take the ground, the high ground. Think of when you're up there. I will be leading you to look over the land and know it is ours. We're going to reform it. We're going to smith it. It will cost. All good things cost. You're all here because you've got perfect talents. I'm telling you this. You're not to question it. If you question it, you are lost. If you cross a road and stop midway, you are lost. You will get struck by the oncoming vehicle. We are not going to get hit by that which is coming. There's a very, very special place in history for us. We will be remembered. We will be sitting at the table. We will be in the north. We will be in the south. We will be the east and west. We will hold that ground, and we will make the world perfect.
And he essentially, if you like, became him. Like, he used to ring me up in that mode.
Yeah,
quite in character.
Talk about method acting.
There's method acting and there's method acting.
Yeah, he used to the whole speech, the track of speech, which will always remain one of my favourites. Not because it's not a song at all. It's just it's literally a moment. It's like a little scene, and that was just Al coming around here. We set up a microphone, and I sat on the piano, and I said, talk about something along the lines of this is what's just happened in the storyline. What happens next? And he just talked at us and did the board meeting with his. That's what it's about. It's a boardroom meeting.
We asked that here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's like,
I do know the album.
So yeah, I'm glad someone
really.
But no, what was cool about it was that that was not scripted at all, and that helped define the whole thing.
It sounds really well, and it's very cohesive from my perspective. But moving on to And I Know, which is the new album that you've got, and we've obviously started off playing with that one day, which was Lee's lyrics. So we're moving on to No Evil, which, I'll be honest, when you sent me the album over the internet, poking me at... It's a good job I'm an insomniac, really. Poking me. Emma, can I just put something to you? And sort of, I played the album straight away, I'll be absolutely honest. And I probably annoy the hell out of my other half. But I played the album straight away, and I pinged straight back, and I listened to No Evil, and I immediately went, jazz? And I'm going to play No Evil. I'm assuming it's queued up.
Stench so thick it'll make your eyes blue shut. A taste so sour to the touch. We may be animals, but this ain't natural.
So, in terms of, what was your contribution to No Evil?
I didn't write the lyrics. These were Dan's.
These existed,
ones,
didn't
weren't they?
Yeah,
He
I
kind
wrote
of,
this
you'd already
ages
written
ago,
these,
yeah, like a long time
so
ago.
it's kind of when we recorded it. This was kind of, you'd had like a bit of a guide vocal down already, didn't you? And then like we kind of listened to that, and then
Emma just changed it like totally.
I listened to it and then I changed it.
She went, well, good effort, Dan. Good effort.
No, I think it definitely follows.
Should sound like this.
You took it to.
You
a
owned
place.
it, really. I think you just made it your own. You put your own stamp on it, which is
Yeah.
why, and it shines through. Like it's definitely a highlight.
The No Evil, Reaper and Radio were all demos me and Gary did just with a keyboard and drums like a long time, well I say a while ago. Like when it was probably still just me and you. I think those were the first three things we wrote after Pandora finished.
Yeah.
And then we've now reconstructed them as a band, whereas before it was this was just me on the piano singing
That's
live.
normally what happens is if you've got somebody who writes. I mean, this is my experience. I haven't seen a lot of bands working. My musical capabilities are somewhere between that and that. But sort of what tends to happen is you'll get somebody who has got the germ of an idea. If it's a lick, it's a riff, it's a line or whatever, and then the rest of the band join in and say, right, okay, let's flesh it out. I mean, Genesis were notorious for that when they were making their albums. I mean, there's a piece that they wrote in the late 60s called The Movement, if you know anything about Genesis. It's a 45-minute...
Familiar with that piece, no?
It's never been released, but there are bits of it in Supper's Ready. There are bits of it
I see, right.
in White Mountain. There are bits of it in Nursery Crime.
Right.
All over it, it's been segmented and wherever, and literally
Sounds like our strings, mate.
it's a
We've got
it's a
songs like that.
45-minute jam session.
Yeah.
Literally, where they just literally in the studio.
Well, at least they can say it's a jam session. Because for us, most of it's normally composed within inches of its life and structured, because me and Dan have literally put it together section by section.
So when you're actually writing music,
we record at the same time.
you record at the same time as you're writing.
Yeah.
I never come in and go, I've got the song. Never. It's never.
I'm
like
hoping that now that
I hope
we
it does
haven't really done yet, but given there's now 4, the reason we need it, we did it through necessity, because if there's only me and Dan, we couldn't play it really. We had to go, right, play the guitar, now dub the keyboard over. Oh, I see it, I can hear this now.
Now it's going somewhere.
Now we can do, you could play guitar while Lee plays bass and Emma does some singing over it. We could do that.
Right
we
in
need
the room a bit more.
What I really want to do though, because I've forgotten what it's like. It's been in bands years ago was the last time I even attempted something like that.
I found it crazy when I first started, with you, and I thought, is that how you do it? Like, because I was just used to in my last band. That's just how we did it. We came in, stood in a circle, and played music for 3 hours. But it's interesting how you do it, because I think then it kind of, the songs really do go on that sort of journey, don't they? Because you do that bit and then you think, well, where can we take it? And it builds up.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the stuff that I did previously were quite like sort of stock kind of A, B, C structure kind of. So it's interesting.
It's almost, this is me from the outside looking at, thinking, well, And I Know is almost a next step from Pandora to something that you actually want.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That you've got something almost here, and I'll freely admit, And I Know feels a hell of a lot more like a band than Pandora did as a piece. So And I Know feels like a band together, creating music and making a piece of music for recording purposes. So this is just me picking up from what you've just said, that you're on the verge of having something a lot more solid and a lot more stable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah?
We've gone on a long journey to get there.
Yeah.
You know, we've had people come and go, and you know, it's taken a bit of effort to find you know, people that actually want to invest the right amount of commitment to the band, which can go either way. We've found people who just wanted to throw so much at it that it was overpowering, and we found people that were unreliable and weren't willing to commit as much as, you know, we felt was reasonable. And so it's been quite a journey to find, you know, Lee and Emma who you know, we're on the same page basically.
That's the key point, is that up until now, because me and Gary have built something, just the two of us, it's been really hard for anyone else to come into it. You know, because they're used to, we're used to how we operate, and then someone walking in is like, well, where's the room for me to operate within that? And then where do me and Gary leave space to allow people to come in or whatever?
So how big a barrier is it?
It was massive, I think.
Ask Lee and Emma.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
They're a right pair to work with.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, as
Wooden spoon.
As I said, when I first came into this room, it was a good few years ago, wasn't it? It was before We Are Kin became We Are Kin. I think it was still Kinesthetic at the time.
Yes.
And I came in and listened to some stuff, and we played Home Sweet Home and whatnot. And I could tell even then, because Dan and I used to work together, and we'd meet up from time to time, and he'd tell me about how he'd built this song, and he was drawing this song, and he said, I've got this story to tell you, and so on and so forth. And I knew back then that it was absolutely his passion, his thing. I didn't know Gary at the time until I'd come into the studio, but he talked about me and Gary done this, me and Gary done that. Do you want to come along, join? I thought, I'll give it a go. And I came in and I thought...
I could see the fear in your eyes.
Oh, absolutely. I sat in here and I thought, bloody hell, what can I add to this other than playing the bass line that Dan gives me to play? So, absolutely. And at that time, you know, I had other things to do, so didn't follow it through. And the reason I joined the second time was because it was about gigging Pandora, so I knew that all I really had to do was learn what they'd already written. So that was easy. I mean, if I went in there with no creative vibe whatsoever and didn't want to be involved, then it was an easier way to get in. So I came in and then I started ruffling feathers and bringing the manager in me, talking about the rest of the lineup and that sort of thing.
I think it was useful though. I think it was really good that you, because it showed that you cared for a start, and you need someone who cares, and it, you know, it showed that you were clearly willing to commit, because you wouldn't have done that unless you
absolutely
unless you cared. So.
And that was really my way in, not musically. It was about trying to get the band to a point where it could actually become what it is today. So shake off some of the dead wood, and you know, think it through. So once I'd gotten the confidence of these guys, then I thought, I'll start pissing around with the bass lines a bit as well and see what we can come up with. And the whole And I Know album, there's very little on there that was thrust at me by Dan and Gary. It is actually a creative thing. It's something that I now feel I've contributed to, and it was a tough slog to get in. I had to find my point of difference to be able to get them to open up a bit. So yeah, it did take a while. I think if I'd gone in there as a pure creative basis, saying I want to change some of this stuff, I think the doors would have shut and I'd have been out on my ass before you.
Well, it depends on what your ideas were, because me and Dan we did similar things. We had two friends who joined, and the band took a completely different direction. You know, they wanted something different to us, and what ended up happening is we kind of felt less involved, less. What's the word? You know, less like it was our thing.
Yeah.
And
it became a rock band, and that wasn't. What
it was pretty good, but it just wasn't what we wanted it to be.
We've actually, and now it's split off into two bands. They're a band called Fields Without Fences, and they're really good at what they do. And it's like it's become this. They've got what they needed, and we've got what we needed. It wouldn't have happened if we'd all been.
The thing is, everyone needs to want the same thing. You know, if you'd have come in with ideas that were congruent with what we were aiming to do, then it would have been great, and it is great. But if you come in wanting to do a punk piece or something, we'd have probably said yes, because I'll try anything. Once, because it's unreasonable to say no, that's not going to work. You know, you have to give things a go, which is probably why we ended up where we were with the previous guys. You know, we ended up getting to the point where this has gone on a journey we didn't want it to go on, because we let it happen and then we had to opt out.
So that sort of quite handily brings me onto a question that basically makes me scratch my head, because from my perspective, even you, you're all so young.
Oh, right. Aren't you sweet?
Oh, yeah.
Look at the grey in here, seriously.
I'm from the generation. I was a teenager in the heyday of progressive rock music, prog rock, whatever band you want to call it. And so most of the people that listen to this kind of music are my age group. I'll be absolutely honest. You know that. So why prog? Why on earth prog? We're not going to discuss what's prog and what's not prog. That's not up for grabs. But why put yourself in literally probably the commercial suicide equivalent musically of prog rock? I mean, the days of selling millions of albums on a concept album, which, let's face it, both of these have concepts. Both albums do have concepts. But why sell yourself and put yourself into an area that's prog rock?
You're going to have to answer that, because I am so not prog.
I don't think anyone chooses their label, do they? That's the trouble there.
But what Lisa says is exactly the point. Lee and Emma haven't walked into this band as prog rock fans at all.
No.
Me and Gary were, and that's why we started working together, was that we had a mutual appreciation for Genesis. Lee, I'd worked with as a bassist and knew he was brilliant, and Emma came and auditioned for the band and stunned me with her vocal, and it was like those kind of happened. Rightly so. Right, as she has done to other people live. So the funny thing about it is that it's just what happened, and the whole prog thing is what's funny about it is that I listen to our music, and I think if you put it down in front of somebody who didn't know what the word prog rock was, like a lot of different types of people could probably enjoy it, and I think that's really what prog is actually, is that it's about a wide reach.
Yeah,
that's essentially what it boils down to. It's the whole word progressive within that. So I know we said we're not going to talk about the definition, but for me, in relation to the band, that's all it is. It's that there's influences in there that are relatively wide. There's a consistency throughout, which is essentially ballads. That's essentially what we do, isn't it? Like there's bits of rock in there and stuff, but they're ballads.
The literal meaning of ballad means it's a story. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah. So that's kind of where it naturally falls into that bracket. And then just compositionally, like the songs would generally start off as a piano thing. That's just where I come from. That's the angle I come from because of where I've come from, and that's you put all those ingredients together, and that's where you end up with. But this album is different to Pandora is more proggy. In the old school way of thinking, and this is far more. This is something I don't even know what this is really. It's something else.
You're not going to get any froggy bass lines out of me, to be fair. And I think the other thing to say is that Grace, my daughter, she She listens to No Evil all the time. She absolutely loves it. And then she'll flick over to Ariana Grande and Jessie J and all that sort of thing. And it fits what she likes. And not just because the lyrics are about her, but one No Evil aren't. Just love it.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, isn't it? I mean, that's like also, yeah. It's just, I don't know how it's become less important to me. I think when we made Pandora, it was actually quite important.
Yeah.
Because of how much what I liked about 70s Genesis or whatever, and Crimson and stuff like that. It was very much in my mind while we were writing music. Now it's just like.
Well, if it's worth anything, when I heard Pandora, the first thing that didn't come to mind was King Crimson or Genesis. No. To be absolutely honest.
So what is it that comes to mind? Because I'm not even sure.
You see, this is one of the reasons why I asked the question, because if you take away the concept and you strip back to the basic songs, it's an album that could quite comfortably, if you take away the talky bits that define and put the structure of the album in. For me, if you listen to the album, that could quite easily sit in the mainstream, quite easily sit in mainstream music, probably indie area arena quite easily with very little difficulty. I mean, you could probably sit under the banner of sort of the likes of Anathema, the likes of Muse, the likes of Radiohead, that sort of ballpark musically. I mean, okay, they do have a prog following as such, but musically, I would more than likely, hadn't spoken to you, slotted you in that arena rather than anything else. But that's just my take on it, and that's just the way I read the music. And hang on, right. Which I suppose, talking about radio airplay and commercial, I suppose it's an opportunity to sort of play the next track. Yeah. Right, radio. Tell me about radio.
Isn't it sort of set, because again, these are Dan's lyrics, and he's sort of come in and it's kind of like this, someone that's survived an apocalypse, basically. So it's kind of their story, isn't it? Quite subtly, but then you kind of get more of a sense of that, like at the end of the song. So it's kind of that.
That's exactly what it's about. And this alludes to the whole. I'll touch on this now, but the whole point of each song on the album, apart from the "and I know that one day we'll have to say goodbye," that happens in the present. Everything else is essentially memories, future, past, present.
Yeah.
So they're not linear. That's the point. Pandora was an A to a B story. This is not.
The rest of it's not fixed in any kind of time frame.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of so. Radio, it could have been in the future, could have already happened, could have be happening now. Don't know. And that's kind of the point of it. That's why we've got these different.
We tended to not be quite so locked on about the story having to flow in this one, didn't we? And focused more on, this is a good song. It fits with the story loosely like this, but it's also a good song and it fits in this at this point in the album.
And Emma as vocalist, did you put your own stamp on it like you did with
again,
No
it's
Evil?
Kind of like listening to sort of a rough kind of guide vocal, really, that Dan's done, and then changed it.
Quite significantly.
In the nicest possible way.
See, listening to Dan's voice and his key singing, and then listening to hearing your voice, thinking, right, okay, a massive key shift. Shall we play it?
Yeah.
Let's.
How would it feel if it was just you? No one else to blame. Only yourself to shame. Oh, last one standing. Amidst the lights of the city, the carefree to and fro, a place once dear to me. I close my eyes and it still glows. so tired of being alone. A corrugated shelter to call home. Holding on to hope, the hope of company, a friend. Last one standing. Last one standing. Oh, last one standing. Oh, last one standing. Oh, last one
I think more than any other song on the album, this is the one that's been mucked about with the most since we became
Well, it
a
was
band.
completely like because when I sang it, it was because it was like really
fretless
funky,
thing.
and I sang it, and I kind of did a vocal to kind of reflect that, and then you said, "Oh, we've done some stuff to it," and emailed it to me, and it was completely different.
Left the vocals on it.
Totally different.
Previously, yeah.
The way the song was, it was like it was an old school version. I'll send it to you one day. It's exactly the structure's the same, but there's
completely different.
There's nothing. We've re-recorded everything. Yes, that's the drums, the vocals, the bass, the guitars, and even the chords. Nothing is identical. And what happened was Emma replaced my original vocal, and then we changed a bit of the guitars and stuff. And we were like, "Oh, that's cool." And the song had never sat with me. So one evening I said to Gary, "Can we just go in and have a go with it?" And we ended up removing all the instruments, leaving Emma's vocal there, and rewriting the music around her vocal. And I loved every minute of doing that. Like, it was so much fun. And I wanted to.
And it was hard when we first heard the changes. I was in two minds, because you hear the original and you're used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original was like, you're like, because it was heavy. It had guitars. It had real drums. In fact, there's a clip on Facebook, isn't there?
If you do big
of me doing like a big fill in the middle of it. On the real drums, really, it was a heavy, loud song, and Dan had sung guide vocals on it, and he'd really screamed them out.
It was quite aggressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an aggressive piece. Really? Precisely, it's hard to believe, isn't it? Because now
it's not
completely changed.
It had a
to this sort of
Seagulls bass line to it as well, isn't there?
But that's what makes it for me a song that we were going. Has it got a place on the album? It's all right. It's not our best. This is on the album because when Emma's vocals, were put on with this, arrangement of it, it was just that works.
It suddenly made sense, didn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was cheeky. It was interesting. Whereas previously, it was just in many ways a standard rock track, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was fun. I liked it, but there was always a hole in it, and we could never. Yeah. It's like you're kind of thinking there's something wrong with the EQ of it, like there's a hollowness to it, and we tried so many things to fix it, didn't we?
Yeah. Sometimes that happens with songs. You can't put your finger on what it is that's missing.
Yeah.
You keep adding things, and it makes it worse. You take things away, and it doesn't work either.
Yeah. It sounds like the table leg, wobbly table leg thing. You've got one leg that's off, you cut a bit off.
Yeah.
Cut a bit off.
So in the end, we just cut all the legs off and built them again.
Yeah. Went to IKEA and bought a new table.
I still think it's good. it's just not as good as this.
No, this definitely has more
Yeah.
like
Character
depth to
to
it.
it.
Because when I first heard it, I was a bit like, oh, well, it was really funky, and I sang it funky, and then
You put the heart out of it.
yeah. But then we came back, and then I re-recorded the vocals. I think not completely differently to how I did it, but just kind of softened them a little bit to kind of.
To fit.
And
with
then
it.
the ending ended up being really different, didn't it? We were like, well, what are we going to do at the end? Because he completely changed the end. So, but then I think we ended up getting something quite like substantial in that. And,
Yeah, it's good.
Because at the time, I'd worked on I'd never done like an orchestral thing before, and on my laptop I'd had a go at making something orchestral. And I got round there and said, oh, why don't we try an orchestral ending? And Gary was like, really? Every time we try this, it always ends in tears. It always sounds rubbish. And it was the
I
first.
can hear you saying that, Gary, too.
It was.
It doesn't sound like something I'd say, Lee, does it?
And it worked.
Generally, I mean, let's say I'm right 70% of the time. The 30% of the time I'm wrong. I'm really pleased I'm wrong, because it's always very good.
Was that not a good thing, knowing you've got this almost balanced equation?
Yeah, I like that balance. Because it gives you something to push against. I feel sometimes if I say I don't like it, I don't think it's going to work, it makes Dan even more likely to want it more. Which is fine, because then he ends up producing something better, and vice versa, you know. It's a healthy conflict.
Yeah, totally. The best things we've ever done have been because we've debated it.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very rarely it's like, oh, let's try that. Yeah, that sounds amazing. It's usually like, oh, I don't know about that, and that's what gives the unexpected twists.
Yeah.
You know?
Faded it back up, eh? Like it.
That was... Oh, we're on to track 3. I'm not even going to look at the time, because that's just going to scare me to death. So that's radio, and that's a point in time, post-apocalyptic, universal environment. And we're ever very, very proggy indeed. Probably more death metal, isn't it? Sort of,
Yeah, it is a bit.
even though it's...
Delivered in a ballad.
You're going to try death metal next time.
I could try death metal, yeah.
Just please do not do Cookie Monster vocals.
I think
That's
sound
Steve
terrible.
Blease's bag, not mine. But sort of, we're getting into the meat and potatoes of the album now, really, aren't we? And it's sort of where we go from there. You're well into sort of good halfway into the album, and the next track is We'll Have to Say. Emma, tell me about it.
It's just a really beautiful instrumental sort of section, really, of the album. So I think you kind of get the taste in the first section, and then you get this, I don't know, almost like a interlude, I suppose, and you're kind of taken away a little bit. And we've got flute in this section, which is kind of the only appearance that instrument makes, and so it's kind of like a standalone sort of moment, I think.
Who's the flute player?
It's my friend Ramsey Giannini, and Ramsey is a old brother of mine from back in the day. I met him when he was my boss in Norwich back in the day. This would be about 15 years ago, and he then eventually came to Manchester, and we sort of got in bands and stuff. And then he went and moved abroad for a while, and he's been sort of in and out of the UK ever since. And he's just an amazing classical guitar player, but he's also a really great flautist as well. But the whole point of this little thing was that we wanted to have some kind of thematic continuation from Pandora. And this might be... That One Day has a little bit in there as well. There's that... That's from The Door, from Pandora. And I basically said to Ramsey, that's the key melody. Don't ever play it, but hint at it the whole time.
Yeah.
So he floats around it, and
So there's a lot of improv going on.
Totally, yeah. And it was like the speech on Pandora, where it was exactly the same approach. Ramsey came in, Gary set up the mics, and I just played a chord progression and just improvised with him, and we played off each other. And that's, again, incredibly unlike us. We don't jam, do we? That's like, didn't on Pandora. We've only started to do it on this album. And the results were something quite natural, which was missing from the first album, I think.
And he was quite almost, well, he's overly critical of his performance. He was so like,
Yeah, he was.
oh, I'm just not pitching right tonight. Oh, this is this. And I was like,
Dude, it's amazing.
mate, this is amazing. This is fantastic. And he was like, yeah, I just, there's that
I'm not warmed up,
raspiness
mate, I'm
start. And I was like, no, that sounds good.
Yeah,
That
we like
really
it.
gives it character.
Yeah.
And, he might well have preferred to have played it several more times. And,
Oh, of course he would have done.
whatever.
But we
But
captured
to me,
something,
what
didn't
we
we?
captured there was him improvising something quite nice to that, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's a punk. I guess it's like that. It's the punctuation in the middle of the album. It's like it's a milestone, right in the centre, and it harks back to the previous, and it's part of the wider narrative from Lee's lyric.
All
from
good
the beginning,
albums
all that
tend to
stuff.
have those kind of tracks. It's almost like if it was a vinyl piece, you think that might be the last track on side
Side
one,
one,
Yeah.
and you just finish that, and then you turn over and you almost get like a refresh, don't you, on the first track of side two.
So like last time, what happened? You kind of to be
Yeah.
continued and all that stuff. Yeah. That's what it's for. But
Are you old enough to remember vinyl?
I've got vinyl.
I've never said that. Are you old enough to remember vinyl?
When I was a kid, I had Thriller
My dad.
on vinyl. My mum and dad had a vinyl player. We didn't have a CD player at the time. And this was fun. I'll be brief.
Please.
Yeah.
I had Thriller
You love-
bought for me.
Did you really?
On vinyl. It wasn't my mum and dad's.
That was
It was a birthday present.
I see. So we had a vinyl collection, and the only one I remember was Thriller. That's the only vinyl I remember.
That must be a spectacular vinyl collection.
Yeah, it would have had like all kinds of crazy stuff on it.
Val Doonican,
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Roger Whittaker,
yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Ackerbilk. I'm just describing my dad's
Johnny
vinyl
Mathis.
collection.
What's the heartthrob guy who was on every girl's wall in the 60s?
David Essex.
David Essex.
That's the 70s, not 60s. That's the 70s.
Oh, sorry.
I was there.
Anyway, yeah. So, but from there, we got a CD player. My uncle went to live in the States, and he gave us his CD collection and said, "Look after it." And in this box of CDs, the first one on the front was this red one, sort of looked like hell with a motorcycle on the front. I thought, "Oh, what's this?" And I put it on and bad out.
Meatloaf.
There we go. That's what did it. I was probably about 8, and I was like, "Down now," and I was like,
Yeah, that's the age that it's aimed for.
"Oh, it totally got me." Like it was awesome, and it stayed with me ever since. But yeah. Anyway, I digress.
Yes.
Shall we play the track?
Yes, please.
That is beautiful flute.
It's good.
It is lovely.
He's got a real soul in his playing, and yeah.
I've got to play me upright on this one as well. It's
And
the only
no-
one I've got the upright on.
Oh,
You
yeah.
give it a bash, didn't
Are
you?
you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you playing the?
Yeah.
Did we leave
it's
it on?
this. It's
Well,
on
that's
this one.
that's Exhale. We didn't finish it on.
Yeah.
Right.
It's on this one.
Dun, gung, 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 gung. It's got. Well,
So how many
upright has,
basses have you got?
How many basses? 6.
6.
6. I can play 2 of them.
At once?
That's worth a shot. I've got one upright.
It's got a
and
triple neck bass, all 4 strings.
Yeah, that'd be
Each
funky,
one's 4
wouldn't it?
strings.
I've got 2 5-strings now. An
Proper
acoustic
prog.
4-string. My favourite 4-string, which I've had 20 odd years now.
Aria, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a quality bass.
Oh,
though.
it's lovely.
But Aria were good, man.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your influences?
Late 80s hair rock and grunge and Chili Peppers, early 90s Pearl Jam. That's when I was at university. That's when I was in my first band. So Jane's Addiction and
Quality. Yeah.
Clawfinger and all sorts of crazy stuff. Pantera,
I've heard of none of these bands.
Is that no
Pantera,
Jane's Addiction?
No, I don't.
Juanes Addiccioni.
I'm sure they're really good. They just that's not
They were good.
an area I've
It was
ever.
the Americana thing, like that was.
Yeah,
right, okay.
along
Blame
with Chili-
Seattle.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Right.
Blame
Seattle.
Seattle.
Did you like Soundgarden?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't go wrong with a bit of Black Hole Sun, can you? Really? Seriously.
You can.
Super Unknown's belting. So anything from 1988 to 1995, and obviously Metallica on top of that. And that was.
I was
that
born
was
in
my-
1988.
I was 16 in 1988.
I was born in
I
85.
got married in 1987 the first time.
Oh.
I was 26.
What?
I'm about. How tall is this building? I want to jump off it.
I'm not
So
that
what-
far behind you, Emma.
So, what about your influences, Emma? Where you come from?
It's quite different, really. I think with like to yours, I like listen to a lot of Viva Cassidy and like Beverly Knight, like Whitney Houston and stuff when I was a
Whitney's
teenager.
quality.
Like big female voices, basically, and then I moved up to Manchester and joined a gospel choir just to sort of try and make some friends and things like that. So I've become quite heavily influenced in that sort of sense now. I really kind of enjoy that, like heavy harmony and sort of, I don't know, quite a sort of strong kind of twangy sound actually, I think, gospel music. But yeah, so like a bit of a mixture, but sort of, yeah, mainly like
Some of the greatest
female.
women's voices in history have come from the gospel background.
Totally.
Yeah.
Gospel's some of the best vocal performances you'll ever
Yeah, it's
find.
incredible.
Certainly is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really amazing. Like, and the guy that
it's-
leads it's incredible as well. He's called
Right,
Wayne
yeah.
Ellington. Like,
Right.
if you ever look him up, like he's just about to go on tour, like doing like a sort of tribute to Nat King Cole sort of like tour, and he's really good.
Right.
So. But yeah, that's me really.
And I miss Tom Waits, so he's my.
Tom Waits.
He's my
He should be everybody's.
grown up influence.
Yeah.
Grown-up influence.
Yeah.
Who has grown-up musical influences? Tell me.
Just me, just the one. Tom Waits. I've grown up, and Keith Caputo, Mina Caputo.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
If you like Tom Waits, check out a guy called Ian Siegel.
I will.
Can be edited out. Reaper.
It's got never.
Apart from
No idea.
apart from a piece of
Is that one of
software,
ours?
apart from a piece of software and and sort of death being a character in Terry Pratchett's books.
And Bill and Ted.
And Bill and Ted. Oh, don't. Oh, no, don't. How to completely ruin the Seventh Seal for me, the chess game with death. Right. Reaper.
Yeah.
Go on then, Dan.
So damn.
No, I'm sorry. You tell me about Reaper, Gary.
I've got to remind myself how this one goes.
Gary, this is an interesting reacting fact.
I'm-
Gary doesn't remember song names
Incredibly
at all.
forgetful. Oh, what was it called originally?
It's the one, you know, with the bass line that goes. doo-doo-doo-doo. And no, you don't know that bit. You actually like that bit.
Oh yeah. So with this one, for me, it was finding that ethnic kit. That like. I'm not even sure what it is. It's Chinese, possibly. It's one of the kits on Logic, and just having those different sounds. Like when I played that rhythm, you were playing the stuff along to it. That's how it started.
That was the beginning of
your chord progression, and it kind of just went from there. And what I think we were keen to do is keep it quite low key. Just let that drum beat lead it with just some soft stuff around it.
Because it feels a really open piece to me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room in there. If you know what I mean, it's like you get some music that literally every bit of the soundscape's jam packed with some kind of sonic presence, but there's a lot of spaces in this.
Yeah,
that was quite hard as well for us.
It is. It's it's out of our comfort zone because normally I like a wall of sound. It's nice, you know. And whenever you hear anything, you can go, I could just put this little. Why don't you put a little extra guitar on that, Dan? Go on, or a little extra synth. But actually, we held back. We held back on this one because it you know. Though I think it was because of the drums. I really like that kit. I just think it sounded so nice, and you didn't need to be cluttered with loads of other stuff.
No.
So that's how it was for me.
It was another one of those sessions where just after Pandora, me and Gary in here, and having a loose idea. That whiteboard behind us that's where a lot of the things would start life.
You're terribly well organised.
I know we are.
That's Gary.
You should see our spread. We've got spreadsheets and stuff.
Really?
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're quite organised.
Plan the work the plan, I say.
Work.
Yeah.
No,
hang on, I need to get my
Failed
sheet
to
out.
plan to fail.
Bullshit bingo, you know.
Yeah. Take it off.
Sorry, I'm used to work. I used to work in the corporate sector.
I still do. You still do.
I think being organised is important though, because otherwise, because there's only 4 of us again. Like we need to be quite, you know, when it comes to writing a song and recording it, we need to be quite organised as to how the song's going to be pieced together.
It's just a visual. It's just a visual. I used to have an old job. We used to have a massive whiteboard that was as long as the rooms. So you could go into a meeting room and there'd be a whiteboard the length of the room. And just you walk in there, whiteboard marker. And I used to disappear. If I had a problem that I couldn't figure out at my desk, I used to walk in there and draw it. And that would help. And I find even just that little one in here, it does help because it means it's more of a comfort blanket than anything, isn't it? You just write it down and get it out. You get it out of your brain. But the whole Reaper thing was, I had an idea for a song, and it was probably I don't remember what it started off with. The lyrics, which is quite unusual. Usually it's the keyboard or whatever. There's a chord which starts the song. So and it was just one line would have started it, and I can't remember which one it would have been, but the song is essentially about it's kind of about we just finished Pandora, and we knew it was very difficult to reach anybody with it. We knew there would be people out there that would enjoy it. But it's in this era, someone has to have a reason to care with music. Like, there's so much good stuff there. There's so many people promoting good music, saying, please come and check this band out, they're really good. We're no different to any of those, and that's kind of the point. And that's kind of Reaper was a little bit, it was about having an audience there you're trying to reach. But so there's and also the that false promise you have in your head that eventually people will like this kind of things. It was quite self-deprecating in a way. It was kind of like there's the promise to us all and all this stuff like the it was just if you listen to the words in it, that's kind of what it's about. It's about that sort of trying to reach an audience and not believing it's ever going to happen kind of thing. And then Bad Elephant happened and all that stuff after that. But that was Reaper was quite. That's where it came from anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a funny one. But the simplicity of it and the space of it, for me, Mama by Genesis. That's why. That song for me is the best example of space and a groove that just builds over time, and opens up. That's what that was. You know, it was just trying to reach a crescendo, and we're not very good at. having that space in our songs.
No.
So it was really hard.
Which can mean
put it
there's a
in.
risk of them becoming a bit formulaic, isn't there? Oh, they're going to go into this big end section now. You can hear it coming, and actually, we need to be careful.
Yeah.
We know
Shall we let people have a listen to it?
let them judge for themselves. Yeah.
Poured out heart and soul to an empty room. Suited ghosts with false support. Promise to us all. Promise to us all. As far as it takes, as far as it takes, as far as it takes. As far as it takes. As far as it takes.
Musically, where's you come from, Gary?
Some strange places. Genesis, I'd say, is my main influence. That's where anything you hear in this, you can hear Phil Collins, or at least I'm trying. Anyway. And that, and my dad had things like King Crimson and Pink Floyd in his record collection. Pink Floyd was a big one for me. I liked the space they left in their songs. They were one of those bands where you'd hear an album and you'd go, this is just a noise. But somehow I'd want to listen to it again. And I go, it's in my head, but it's just a noise. Well, listen to it again. So you listen to it again, you go, it's still a noise, but I'm starting to like this noise. And
Are you talking about sort of Piper at Gates the Dawn by any chance?
Well, yeah.
Or was it Ummagumma?
Yeah, that sort of stuff, or even like, what's the one about the? I've had too much wine. The first track on Wish You Were Here. Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Basically,
even the first bit on that is just a long, extended, protracted bit of synth stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, basically, it's a long
pulses.
It's a long jam.
Yeah, but that compelled me. I liked that, but then I liked the Genesis, the newer Genesis stuff, where it was all quite pop and quite well produced. It was, So I'd say they were my two main influences.
I don't know that gated drum sound in the 80s.
I love that.
Oh yeah, we love it. That's
Love it.
awesome.
I love. The thing I love about the gated drums is it's so big, and yet you can still hear all the other instruments around it.
Yeah.
His
very
drums
economical, isn't it?
are massive, but I can still hear the guitar, I can still hear the vocals, I can still hear everything else. It's just they have been placed alongside all those other instruments, whereas a lot of bands, that isn't the case.
You listen to a 70s drum kit, on a 70s recording, and it sounds like a tiny thing in the corner.
Yeah.
And it can, and they're playing some amazing. Like listen to Zeppelin or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like this huge drum kit, does it?
No, it just sounds like a drum kit that's been mic'd up in a small
Just one microphone
drum booth.
dangling over it, like swinging.
Yeah. which works for Led Zeppelin. It's great, but you know.
But yeah, you're right. That's like the era of digital drums and stuff, and when that became, and the whole gated. I love gated drums.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't think we've used it enough, actually. To be honest.
No.
I know. Yeah.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
See, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan, but there you go.
No, you know.
I sit with Francis Dunry on that one. Sort of, it ruined a lot of music.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Gabriel's got a lot to answer for with his sort of no cymbals kind of scenario. That let's let the drums breathe. Let's let the music breathe a bit, which was great at the start, and then everyone seemed to copy it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably.
I know
the sound itself doesn't annoy me, but I think
it's the overuse of it.
The way that it just basically every track that came out for a 3-year period didn't have any other kind of drums.
Yeah.
And that sort of annoyed the hell out of me. I mean, when I remember Derek Foreman out of Palace, when they had their recording contract with Harvest, first thing they did was go out and buy a brand new set of Simmons drums.
Yeah.
The whole digital kit. I mean, they played on stage. They didn't have an acoustic drum on stage.
Yeah.
And
that was very like Def Leppard, wasn't it? The
Def Leppard,
Simmons
and,
drums. Yeah.
Is it the hexagonal, the octave?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
They're very
the originals
of their time. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
They're quite expensive on eBay now. Though. You try and get a second-hand one.
Really?
Yeah, not cheap.
well, they didn't last that long.
They made like 10 of them.
Like any fashion, it sort of comes in phases and goes out. Sort of.
Yeah.
Oh, bye.
Comes
Let's
back.
go back to normal.
Mellotron.
Yeah. Oh, Mellotron. Mellotron. I don't hear any Mellotron. Why no Mellotron? Your prog band. Why no Mellotron?
There's actually quite a bit.
Oh, there's a lot of Mellotron. Yeah.
We say lightly sampled Mellotron. It's all from a sample on the keyboard. So like,
Is that on the Node?
Yeah. So it's all samples. But
The trouble with the
we do use them
Mellotron
quite
is
a bit,
that
but
from my point of view, when I'm mixing the stuff,
they dominate. Don't
it
they?
is just, it is the only, and unless you try to calm it down, it just overpowers everything.
Which is great if that's what you need.
Yeah.
But we've kind of, I don't know, if you've got a piano alongside it or something, you may as well not have the piano. And just
That's
have a
the
big,
trouble, and then you end up sort of EQing this Mellotron, so actually it doesn't really sound like a Mellotron anymore. It's just
a string sound.
a sort of glorified string sound in the background.
I do love it though. I could sit with headphones on all day just playing chords on Mellotron.
It's a
sounds,
certain
like,
sound, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just really intense.
You tried carrying one.
No, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I broke one.
Carry on, destroy your back.
No, I broke one.
Did you really?
Dropped it.
I'll tell you one day. I broke one. And good job with that spare set of tapes. But sort of moving on, sort of that non-proggy sound that's prog, not prog kind of thing. You've got sort of the Reaper is, like you say, it's that lost soul.
Yeah, it fits again, slots in.
Desperation sort of fits into these two tracks, and we're not going to play them back to back, folks, but sort of Exhale. I mean, the title says it all, really, but sort of where was it coming from?
This is the only song I think on the album where me and Dan, we actually sort of met up and wrote it. We were just in Dan's house on his big piano. But sort of lyrically, it's kind of sort of about like the aftermath of a breakup, really, and sort of feeling a bit kind of like, I don't really know what I'm doing. That kind of like floaty sort of
Limbo.
Like a little bit, I think. So that's kind of where that is, and it's kind of like the lyrics that are kind of taken from some that I've had for ages. But I mean, it was already called Exhale, so kind of the first sort of section of the song is kind of just written specifically for that, and then there's other pockets of lyrics from other songs I've taken. But that's kind of the theme of the song, really. But it was quite nice to kind of write something. Then we just sort of sang it all the way through, really, didn't we?
Yeah,
From
yeah.
sort of you kind of had a good few sort of ideas, and it just sort of came together really nicely, I think. And then we tried, when we came in here to record it, kind of we tried to sort of do it like both at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I did re-record the vocals after, just to sort of try and get them. But I think it's kind of, you kind of get a sense of a performance, I think, with this.
It's
with
a
this
really
one.
honest.
Well, the original
Yeah.
we did do a recording at your house, didn't we? With,
Like ghosts we roam and blend, safely able to live again. And I breathe you in, yet you softly say,
with the piano that we mic'd the piano up,
It's
and
dreadfully out of tune.
Emma sang the pianos. Yeah, but I mean that gave it quite a nice quality to
It
an
did,
extent.
yeah.
I did film it, but when we sort of thought about it in the cold light of day, we felt that we really ought to record it properly in the studio with Dan's keyboard, and
It made such
you
a
know.
difference, didn't it?
yeah,
It
I think
elevated
what
it.
the recording in your house had a certain feel to it. You know, there's a credibility in that recording, but I think the polished sound that we needed for the album was only going to be found by doing it, in a studio.
Yeah, initially I thought that we didn't need to, and then it was after, when you compare the two, it was such a good call.
It's
Right.
I mean it's the
Quite
electric
difficult.
piano, really. The miking up your piano, you can only go so far, especially when it's just in a lounge
Yeah, there was
of your house. The acoustics of the room aren't perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that your inner sound engineer coming out?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's his outer sound engineer.
Well, it's that's all I have, really.
Oh, don't say it. Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
That's what we need in the next album of Ireland.
The smallest one.
Yeah. The tiny one.
The world's smallest one. Yeah.
What in terms of the title of it as well? That was a very deliberate, following on from Pandora. The end of Pandora's Breathe Out, and we were going to put Exhale at the end of this album as a sort of continuation of that. But it's it's like the end of Pandora. The Breathe Out is the end kind of thing of Isaac's life, and then Exhale's kind of harking back to that moment almost. And it was funny again about the lyrical content in the storyline of Pandora. There's a sort of early on in the album, there's a song about a relationship that breaks down, and it kind of weirdly, and Emma put these lyrics together without really talking about that. We didn't really go into that, and it just kind of, again, it fits. But that's what's strong about having if you like, an overarching concept, because it ended up writing itself to the whole thing.
It was very easy, just easy.
It just kind of
like,
happened, didn't it? And it there wasn't
Yeah.
very much, no, it must be this, and we have to talk about this moment, and we have to...
Did you not ever find yourself being painted into a corner lyrically if you got an overall concept?
I didn't... Well, that's the thing, like, Lee's lyric, Emma's lyrics, like, on the beginning of That One Day and stuff, and then Lee's bits in the middle of the sort of the grace sections, as we call them, the and I know one day I'll have to say goodbye and all that, totally independent of the storyline, but for some reason just worked. And Exhale was exactly the same. And there's lyrics in the final sort of song Goodbye, which are a combination of Lee and Emma's lyrics, and it just works. It fits the concept, and so the concept was more. It's quite deliberate. It's there to box in, but it's like Gary used to say about, like, it's like this room. This room represents to us a bit of it's a box that we have to work within. It only will allow us to do so much, but that actually gives us parameters to work within. If the boundaries are limitless, I wouldn't know where to start. if I walked into a studio and had 150 instruments to pick from, I don't think I'd know what to do. I'd just go and sit at the piano.
See, me, as a massive music fan and a bit of a musicologist, I'm probably... No. Am I a musicologist? No, probably not. That will paint me into a corner. But sort of one of the things that always astonishes me, and I've heard an amazing amount of music in my life, and an amazing amount of really, really crap music, as well as some absolutely outstanding stuff. And as you said, at the moment, the market is flooded with some amazing music.
It really is.
It's astonishing. I mean, it's been said that we're in a new golden age of prog, and then there are other people saying, well, it's absolutely all rubbish and let's just get rid of it, or we need a cull. And I'm hearing that. But when I hear any musician go in, create a piece of music, not cover a piece of music or cover somebody else's music, but when you get a bunch of musicians sat down that create something and they put it out, and like anyone, I look from the outside and say, how the hell do you make that? How do you make that? What's the process? How does it work? And I find it fascinating because every bunch of musicians got a different approach.
Yeah.
It's like you've set yourself boundaries. You've set yourself a way to fit yourself in. Right, this is the box that we've got. But this box actually is a lot bigger than we think it is.
I mean, totally. It's almost imaginary.
And if we want to, we can go outside it, but it's enough to build a framework and a foundation to build everything else on. And sort of when I see that, I mean, there are people out there make a right dog's dinner of it. I mean, I remember seeing a guy called Yngwie Malmsteen as a guitarist.
Oh, Malmsteen.
Right.
Awesome.
Absolutely awesome guitarist. Crappiest songwriter I've ever had the misfortune to see.
He's not a songwriter, is he?
And put him in a band as a musician, said, right, play that. Brilliant, right. But he can't write. Couldn't write for
Saying
toffee.
that, I absolutely love Rising Force. That's a brilliant tune. I had this guitar compilation album as a kid that had like Satriani. It was the first time I'd heard shred guitar, and it had Rising Force by Malmsteen. I used to listen to that going, I don't understand this. I was like 16, just started playing guitar, and I was like, this is insane. And always guitar playing. And it was the first time I'd heard full on shred, if you like, with all that kind of stuff. And I was like, what the hell is this stuff? It's quite nostalgic, I think, and that's why I like it.
Nostalgic.
Still. Yeah,
I still think it's fresh.
Yeah.
It's relatively recent for me, but that's my age, I suppose. I suppose we've talked about Exhale. We might as well play it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like ghosts we roam and blend, safely able to live again. And I breathe you in, yet you softly say, you fed the fire, and I see out the flames. Good night, good night. And you fed the fire, a taste, but I won't wait. I won't wait. I can feel it. You have this power, and it's within us. In all the hours, I can feel it. You have this power, and it's within us. In all the hours, I can see you. I can see you. I can see you. You're running
Isn't it funny how a fake piano sounds better than a real one?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
I wouldn't do
It's
it
a sample of a real one, though,
If
isn't
my
it?
piano was tuned and beautiful, like still in good order.
It's a sample of a
It's
real
nice.
one, though, isn't it? You say it's
Yeah,
fake.
yeah, it's a real
It's
sound.
a sample of a real piano recorded in a really decent studio with a decent mic.
Nord put some serious effort.
Yeah,
in.
you know,
They record like the string resonance, don't they? So the thing
Yeah.
about the chord, when you play put your pedal down and hit a big chord, it does this thing where when the hammers hit the strings, all the strings move and resonate, and they sort of create.
You can hear the
harmonic.
whole thing, but you can feel the
You can
whole
feel
thing.
it, and they've modelled that sound. So if you push down a note on the piano, it opens up that theoretical string, and if you hit another note, it creates a harmonic against that string like a real piano would.
Yeah.
So when you create chords, you get these overtones in the background that you don't quite hear or pay attention to, but it's what adds that beautiful richness of a real piano, and why like the old kind of Yamaha, like the Happy Mondays piano sound, yeah? That's why that will never sound real, because it's just the note. You haven't got the body behind the note, and that's what a Nord. I think when I first heard a Nord piano sample, I was like, I need one of these.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I was like, man, I have to get one of these?
Yeah.
It's basically became my mortgage for 3 years. I went and bought one. I didn't have a car, but I had a piano that I was paying. Like it was worth it though. Like we got so much music out of that thing.
Yeah.
So it's just in a shelf in there. Like what the hell?
Well, when we're all out of here, it'll be back in and probably on its throne.
That's the downside. It's the only downside about our setup is that all my equipment's here.
Yeah.
And I don't. So sometimes I come home and I sit at my piano and it's not as satisfying.
Yeah.
I've been playing on my piano at home, which is a baby grand piano. I was like, my mum was taught on that piano. It's like really old. It's got a lot of history in it, but because it's been basically abused by me for like 10 years, and it needs a lot of care and attention. Needs to be restored and all that kind of stuff. I sit at the Nord and I have headphones on, and it satisfies me like 1,000,000 times more than a real piano does. That's really strange, isn't it?
I get it.
Yes, it's just like, it's got its own character. Which is weird considering you sort of say a piano or a guitar which is made of wood. Mm-hmm. You get a feel from that when you touch it, don't you? And it's sort of connection with it. But I get that with an electric instrument, which is just made of no wood.
As a bass player, how do you feel about that?
Well, I was just wondering, I think a lot of people get a lot of satisfaction out of an electrical instrument, don't they?
That's true.
They can do. Moving on.
That sounded a bit FNAF now.
Is this show going to come with an 18 rating?
I doubt it. I mean,
get a 12
you wouldn't be
rating.
able to listen to it, would you, then?
No, I'll be too embarrassed.
Too young. So, geez, what do I think about it? I mean, for years I've been the guy with a bit of chicken wire and a plank of wood, haven't I? That's what a bass is, a plank of wood with some chicken wire on it. You just might as well just have one string.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
You
about
have
that
heard
though, bass,
Jackass
is it?
stories, haven't you?
I have, yes. Yes, I have.
It's not quite one string anymore, is it?
No, got to have at least 5. Yeah, but it's the fun I've always been a bass player. I wasn't a failed guitarist or anything like that.
That's your first thing, wasn't
the
it?
first thing I ever bought was a bass guitar, primarily because I wasn't allowed a drum kit, and I got a little bit confused as to what was making the sound I loved. Was it the drums or was it the bass? And I ultimately concluded that it was the bass. So I got one when I was 15. At Argos at the Metro Centre, I bought my first bass.
Ah, yeah, you're from the northeast,
I
aren't
am,
you?
yeah, from Newcastle. So I bought a Marlin Slammer for 99 quid.
Marlin?
Yeah, I had to save up for ages to get that as well, and bought it from Argos. Never looked back. Straight on to Ride the Lightning, seeing if I could.
Straight away? Bloody hell.
Yeah, well, you know.
Is that the album where they EQ'd the bass out of?
No, that was Justice for All.
Bastards.
Yeah. It wouldn't be the best one to learn to play bass
That's like I'm
against,
saying,
would it? If you
what's the
can't
bass
hear
line? I don't know, there's
the
no
bloody
bass,
thing.
no
Just
bass.
sounds like a fish slap. But yeah, that was it. That was it. That was slightly just before you were born.
Slightly.
Yeah, slightly. And yeah, it's always been about the bass. No treble for me.
Yeah. He doesn't like it when they go.
Like the little Megan Trainor.
Yeah, I slipped that in. I think I got away with
Do
it.
you reckon Grace will go?
Yeah, all about the bass, no treble.
There's some pop culture faux pas this evening, I have to say.
Well, you mentioned bloody Bat Out of Hell, mate. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had Rihanna playing in my back garden the other day.
Beyonce tonight.
Beyonce's there
It is
tonight.
Beyonce. Yeah.
We're missing it.
Oh,
Could have sat in my garden and listened to single ladies.
I love Beyonce.
Put your hands up. I actually quite like Beyonce, I have to say. She's really good.
And pretty amazing singer.
Yeah, she
Her
is,
songs
yeah.
at the moment are
Weird.
terrible, but she is an amazing singer.
I really like in that single ladies song. I love the moog, the big bass sound. That when it kicks in, it's like the song's all percussive almost with vocal, and then the chorus it comes in. And it's just that's prog, man. Beyonce doing prog. You have to respect that. Sorry, we digress.
It's bass. It's bass, more importantly.
You're filling the voice yourself.
It's bass.
And it's bass.
Yeah.
So who are your favourite bass players, apart from the obvious one?
Flea, Les Claypool.
Les is mental. Absolutely insane.
What's the name of the fella from Faith No More? Oh, it's gone.
Don't know.
Billy Gould.
Right.
Stick those three together and you've got what I always wanted to be.
And then you joined We Are Kin.
Well, I put everything away when I left university. Didn't get it out for 15 years. So
I'm just trying to imagine what you would be like on stage when you have space.
well, hopefully, next one we'll have a bit of space. So fingers crossed.
Home sweet home, home sweet home.
Speaking of which, I was there at your very first live performance,
You were.
and I didn't realise it was your very first live performance until halfway through when you told us. I was up at the CCA. That was Prog before Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was first ever.
Yeah.
As the full
Did that make a difference to you as a band?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was like
Well, it was our first proper gig, wasn't it? Really.
we've done
cemented it,
like
didn't
some
Yeah,
mini
did
things.
something,
I've done some open mics with previous singer before. And me and Gary with our old singer had done a trio with just piano, drums, and once or twice.
Yeah.
That was like 3 years before, and then this was the first time we actually played songs from Pandora as they were meant to be with a full band. It was like, yeah, it was a massive milestone. Like,
It was.
Yeah, it was.
It felt like a really big.
And
deal,
to have
but-
the respect of a well-established band
Oh, totally, yeah.
like Abel Gans, you know.
And Peter as well, absolutely.
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really bigged us up, didn't
Yeah.
he?
Yeah, that felt good to have that backing, you know.
Yeah,
people like them saying that they liked our stuff.
Yeah.
Was like, wow, that's high praise. You know?
I
So,
think
sorry.
the confidence that we got from people, people like yourself, who didn't believe it was our first gig. It cemented it for me because I mean, to be honest, I was proper shitting myself.
It felt like my first gig, you know, with this.
Gary disappeared off stage at one point, didn't you? I was like, where
Yeah.
is he? We've lost the drummer.
Kill time, Emma, kill time.
keep talking. But it was really good fun, and the hard work paid off.
I
Didn't
think
it?
we
Yes, it
worked
did,
so
yeah.
hard, like, because I joined, was it September? And we had, at this point, we had another singer and a guitarist. And we were here like twice a week almost, weren't we? Since September to mid-December, like really putting the hours in. So it just felt really like what you said, like it just sort of cemented it all, and it just felt really like just really paid off. I think.
It did, and the second "And I Know" was a pipe dream at that point. You know, we had a couple of the song ideas existed, but the final recordings like we have now developed after the CCA gig. So we got back in January, spoke to the label, and said like when's the next slot that we could fit into. So we looked at dates and deadlines and stuff. Looked at the release schedule of other bands, sort of what was going on, and just try to slot it in. Just try to find a place where
be asleep.
We could actually.
It's the dim light.
Sorry, Dad. Not because of what you're saying. It's the wine. It's the wine.
It's got me all can. But
we wanted to turn the lights off.
Just trying to. I know it's nice and ambient, isn't it? It brings the mood down.
Get your sentence out, mate.
Yeah. I was done. It wasn't going anywhere.
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Now you talk like a proper band.
Go on, fill me out.
You lost me.
This track, we haven't mentioned the other thing quickly. Adam's actually on this track, our previous guitarist. I just said to him that this one section in Goodbye had a piece of guitar that he'd done, which we always called the Crimson guitar, because it was like that kind of like that dirty King Crimson bit. And I just said to him, like,
Well, at first we took it off.
Yeah, we just
because we thought it wasn't fair, to leave it on. It wasn't that we didn't want it on. We just thought it was fairer.
Yeah.
And there was a hole.
A big hole.
Massive hole.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, can we fill this hole with anything? We tried, and we failed.
Yeah.
And we just look. We've got to either play it again, but then what's the point of playing it again? Because what he played was
exactly
what it needed.
Yeah.
That is this section of the song. So we cut the whole section out? I don't want to cut the whole section out. It was a good section.
Yeah.
So we asked him, can we use your bit? Because we really like it. And we,
Yeah, and
fortunately,
cool.
Adam let us do it. And, I'm glad he did, because it's probably the heaviest bit on the whole album, isn't it? And
there's two moments like it, isn't there?
Yeah,
in that one day,
and that's Adam's influence coming through. He liked that heavier stuff.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
It was good that he's got that in there.
Yeah, and also just I wanted to mention that one day, there's a guitar bit during the Lee's vocal lyrical section, in the Grace sort of section, which wouldn't have happened had it not been for our friend Sean. So almost the whole crux of the Goodbye vocal chord progression, that whole feel, which appears 3 times on the album, was all a catalyst because of a tiny little guitar part that our friend Sean just came around and jammed one day, and it's on that track as well. So he's credited on the album as well. But it's funny how these little sort of things quite serendipitously fit
I think it's
together
really useful to have that input from other people.
Totally. Rubbish by ourselves.
To the right amount though. 'Cause
Don't put yourself down.
You go too far though, because I think the other album had a tendency to sound a bit disjointed because it had a lot of input from different people.
Yeah.
It's got 3 different singers on it if you include you, Lauren, and Hannah. There's probably even some of me in the background.
There is you in the background.
The whole thing has. Whereas what we've done here is said, look, that bit that Sean did is really good. It's that part of the song. It fits. It needs to stay.
Yeah.
Likewise with Adam's guitar in this track.
Yeah. And the guests, I just noticed the other day, the guests starring, if you like, the guest performances are on That One Day We'll Have to Say Goodbye, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
It follows through the narrative of the album. So you got like Sean on That One Day, Ramsey on We'll Have
that
to
wasn't
Say.
Planned.
It wasn't planned, no, but I like it.
But it's a happy.
Sometimes the circle does square itself.
Of course it does, yeah.
And that's a really great line to play the track.
Yeah. I know that one day I'll have to say goodbye. Give me the strength to say goodbye. I was mine to do my own thing. Before you came into my world. I couldn't touch you, but I felt you in my soul, and I knew that my world had changed. I've built everything around you. I can't see me today. My world, my space, instead it's you. All I touch is you. All I feel is you. I'm you. I have changed. There is no me without you. How can I possibly let go? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
I seem to turn it all away. what you left behind, and this is what you hope to find. And I'd like to follow you down that path once more and see you in the garden where all you was in my head I've lost you to the fortress I made and the signals were telling me we should have never tried. Yet changing things was never part of my design. Follow you down that path once more. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Follow you down that path once more. 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 I'll follow you down that path once more and see you.
I think we're all pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I think so. I
We
think
were just
so.
like after we had, was it? It was Prog Magazine. We'd done like a Skype interview, and then we just sat like the three of us.
Yeah,
just sort of
put it
sat
on,
and
put it on.
listened to it.
Yeah, we
Just
did.
like,
Yeah,
we
appreciate
were
it.
kind of basking in it a bit.
Yeah.
Signing with a label like Bad Elephant, I mean, they're very much on the rise, and they're I mean, I know David jokes about, right, okay, the criteria for accepting any kind of band is that A, they've got to be able to eat curry,
Yes,
We're in.
we're in.
and B, they've got to be different enough from the mainstream to fit into the Bad Elephant family, because everything about the Bad Elephant music catalogue, you look at it, none of it is mainstream prog
No.
at
No.
all.
No, no.
I mean, if you want mainstream prog, you go out and buy Inside Out or you buy Esoteric.
Yeah.
So,
Sort of left field and.
but I mean, some of the stuff is well out there.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, I reviewed the NYX
Yeah, I love
album,
them. Yeah, it's a cracking album.
for Prog Radar, and I mean, yeah, wow, bonkers.
Yeah.
I mean, I like bonkers. I like weird. I like out there. But I also like simple, good song structure, and melody and harmony as well. So all depends on the mood. But so what have Bad Elephant brought for you? And you can edit what you want out if you want to badmouth David. I don't think he'll be that bothered. Having seen your YouTube videos, where
This album almost never happened.
the promotional stuff.
Yeah.
He's just really nice. Isn't
Yeah,
he?
it is.
He's a really lovely guy, because obviously you were already signed like before me and Lee joined, but when me and Dan went down to London to play sort of the night of Bad Elephant music at,
Is that
can
where you
remember
stepped
the
into the
venue
bridge?
It was
can't remember,
we were
that's really
supporting
bad, I can't
the
remember the
Gift and
Tom Slatter and John Hunt.
Yeah. And when we met him, and he just came, because I was staying with them, they just came into the room, and I just was like, oh, my heart melted a little bit. Like when
It's a
him and his
family,
wife came in, because
yeah.
they're just so nice, and I just think it's really nice that he obviously just likes good music and wants to sort of give people like us that, you know,
Yeah,
are
it's,
really obviously not known at all, like an opportunity.
It's hard to imagine a more genuine and
I don't think it exists.
honest person that actually
Yeah.
just wants to help out a few decent
Yeah.
bands.
When I said I don't think it exists, I don't mean it obviously does. I mean in terms of another label being like that.
Yeah,
This is not what I associate. Well, our first experience of working with a label And I actually hope it's our last experience. I don't really have any. I don't want to work with anybody else because it doesn't need to be any different to what we've got, which is a family supportive, mutual appreciation for what each other brings.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you get that with any other setup.
David's input when we did our first version of this album, and you can hear it on on this track here as much as any of the others, was invaluable. Like when we handed the first, what we thought was finished to them, they gave us some fantastic constructive feedback, on what we should do with certain vocal lines, drum lines, etc.
Ambience.
Yeah, just the general ambience and feel of the whole thing, which we went and did, and we were just like, wow, I can't believe we didn't think to make that change.
And the difference was unfathomable.
I mean, largely what we'd done, and this comes out of our process of recording as we write. That's the trouble with that, is you write something, you record it, and then it ends up staying. And actually, you need to review it and go, hold on, we recorded that the first time, and we shoved like the basic reverb setting on, on Logic. Actually, that's not the right setting. That's not the right processing for that sound. But we just forget that it was even like that. And we get used to it as well.
And we like it, and then it doesn't.
And we'd start to like it. And what David and Martin were able to say is actually, you've washed this with too much reverb, and you need to take it back a bit, so that it stands out. And it was great advice, because when we did it, it really made the album, to me, have that more professional sound to it.
Totally. And then into the whole into the whole hidden room thing, was a 15-minute rant by Al, compressed, where I actually mixed this one. I say mixed it. It's not mixing, is it? I created.
It was an interesting technique that you employed.
I say it the kind way of.
So
I've not seen it done before, but
it was quite a process.
Hey, who am I?
I'll geek out a little bit here. This was quite fun. So basically, Al came round, and we knew we wanted a narrative for this album. We weren't sure where it was going to fit and what it was going to be. So it was meant to be. This album is essentially about a purgatory, and it's about telling the stories of past lives. Yeah. So the character Isaac, this hidden room, is the only reference to the actual storyline properly across the album, and you can assume that the whole of And I Know takes place within the hidden room. That's the point of it. So if you listen to it, you'll hear there's deliberately why Al's voice appears in lots of different places and crosses over each other. It's not meant to be linear. It's meant to be.
Well, that's completely lost on me anyway, because I've only got one ear that works.
I should.
You're only hearing half the song.
We need to make it mono for you so you can hear it. And I just played synth along to him and just improvised glitches and sounds. And then afterwards, I cut out all the breaths and all the spaces and all the gaps, and just left with a constant spiel. And then made them sound different, and made them, some of them boomy, some of them echoey, some of them really direct, some of them really distorted, and just made them shorter. And then that's why it's only like 4.5 minutes long compared to how long he actually spent talking. And yeah, we sort of debated about how long should it be and all that kind of stuff, but I thought every single thing he said was pure gold, and I don't want to lose any of it. I love listening to what he says.
It falls into that category I said earlier about Pink Floyd. When you first hear it, if you don't think it's a noise, you're not a human being. You'll go, that's just a noise. But hopefully, you'll then think, that was an interesting noise. I might just listen to that noise again and see if I can get something out of that noise. And then maybe you'll. I don't think you're ever going to hum along to it, but it offers something else,
you've thrown down the gauntlet there.
Yeah.
I will try to hum along to it. Right, shall we just play the introduction to that?
Yeah.
And then let the introduction, people have the introduction, then we'll fade that out so that people who want to hear the whole piece of Al speaking without breathing for 5 minutes, by the sound of it.
Well, he breathed a little bit, I think.
He did.
He drank some wine.
He drank a lot of wine. He did with the speech on Pandora as well.
Yeah.
So inspiration.
So we will play the introduction to that, then we'll finish off with a bit of a chat about the future.
Cool.
lives always feel like non-space. It's only when I get close. Some things they don't walk fuzzy. Well, it'd be a dream. How can you tell me a dream these days? It's hard to believe when you see something like that. If this is true, seeking proof anyway. Don't you think it's a bit of solipsistic? No, I don't think I should. I don't have faith in something that I've got no possible way of grasping. If it wasn't, I made the right decision. Things aren't all I'm trying to remember. My keys are for instincts also in that pocket. Don't know how much time has been passed. I seem to feel those plans very scary. The outcome.
That's right. You've got gigs coming up. Yes.
We have one gig coming up.
Yeah.
7th of August.
August the 7th, yeah.
And where's that?
Islington, Lexington in
Yeah.
Islington. And we're playing with The Gift and Peter Jones again.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. We played with The Gift. Me and Emma played with the Gift as part of the acoustic duo thing we did. And then we played with Pete in our very first gig that we did up in the CCA. So it's nice to combine our two sort of entry gigs, if you like, to the prog world again, and do it in London with the two bands that we did it with. So we need to get some stuff sorted in Manchester. We would have loved to have done an actual launch, but because of the schedule of the album and life, we've just not had a chance to put anything together. But once we get through this gig, it's just we're going to have to put some...
Start getting some...
Gigging's probably what I
think
think is the hardest
maybe,
part,
like.
I think.
Well, gigging's the bit that isn't just a natural thing that falls into place. Like it's not like recording an album with what we have here, where we can just turn up, plug in, and have a go. Gigging takes some serious...
And actually, there's a lot more. You're laying your soul on the line a little bit more. I think.
Of course you are.
There's no one else in this room to see what I'm doing. I only let out of this room what I think is good enough to let out of this room.
Yeah.
Whereas once you're on a stage and there's an audience of people watching you, hopefully people have turned up to see you.
Yeah.
But assuming they have, they're there. They're going to judge you. That's what they've paid to do. So,
the judgment payment.
And that's different from someone buying a CD and going, "Oh, that's a load of old rubbish." I don't see them say that. I mean, I don't tend to go on Twitter and Facebook that much. So if they slag it off, they slag it off. But at a gig, you can see from their faces if they're bored. And I kind of do this for me, really. So although I say to myself, I'm not that bothered, but if I've gone to the effort of doing a gig, I want people to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they're not enjoying it, I'll be disappointed. And I guess most musicians probably have that.
I've got to admit, I bloody love it. To be fair,
It's good fun.
I absolutely love gigging. I've been in very few bands, and the last band I was in was the one with Dan. And all we did was gig in some excellent venues, and it just brought out the tart in me. I just bloody loved it. When I was the first gig we did at Band on the Wall, when I jumped off the stage and the bloody audience
jumped off the stage on the Band on the Wall.
Yeah, and then my bass was being dry humped by during some Rolling Stones medley or something like that. I'm giving it away, and it was just in the crowd. It was beautiful.
In a charity covers band.
Yeah.
And we got quite a following at the time, which was weird.
Oh, but I love it.
Fun.
I'll tell you. Proper bloody
I think
tart.
I could get into it. I think my problem is I haven't done enough of it. I think if I did gig in more regularly, I'd get used to it. I'd get the buzz.
I haven't got that yet. I guess what's unusual for us, and that was what the whole CCA gig, especially because it was our first proper one as a full band, was that people actually like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true.
That's different from a Facebook post when someone says, I'll like this album.
It's a validation that the internet doesn't give you.
That's the difference between real world and virtual world. And I suppose I ought to ask. I know you've only just got And I Know out, and I know it's only just out on the 8th of July. What after that?
Oh, we have plans.
Yeah.
We have plans.
Are these mysterious plans, or are they plans that you can share?
No, not well. Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are. We've discussed things, but essentially, what we do next needs to be, at least as a starting point. We're going to try just something different and start.
Isaac's put to bed finally.
No,
Not finally.
Not finally. But he's taking a well-earned break. He's kind of whole world apocalypse. Then he died. Like it's time he has a bit of a break for a little while. No, that story's not finished yet. But it's more important in the short term because that story was, if you like, birthed out of necessity, and with me and Gary working together as a two.
Yeah.
That's why
Gave
we
us
created it.
an anchor, didn't it?
Gave us a blueprint. Didn't it?
Yeah.
What we need to do now is find out where we're going musically, because this Pandora was one thing, and I Know is something else, and it feels like we're going towards something.
Well,
we wanna
and I Know is all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I can say honestly, and I mean, I'm lucky enough to have lived with And I Know. When did you send it to me? Couple of months,
3, 4, 5 weeks ago. I can't remember. Was it longer?
Knocking on the door a couple of months ago. I've had it in my file.
Yeah.
And I played it to the other half, and he went, "Really?" In a good way.
Really?
Really?
No, not really. But really? And he went, "Yeah." And I tend to use him as a template because I'm the worst kind of judge. Because love or hate an album, I'll play it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times to get my head into it.
Yeah. And you can like anything.
And you'll probably end up liking it.
And that's purely because sort of 20 years ago I lost hearing in one ear, and I gave up on music for 7 years. Completely gave up on music at all because I thought I'd never hear stereo again. And believe it or not, it took for me to seriously get back into music. It actually took Tiny Fish. Simon Godfrey, it's sort of circular.
No way.
Really weird. Took a Tiny Fish album, thinking, hell's teeth, there's some good music being made.
What's really funny is that was his journey back into prog as well.
Yeah.
It's quite funny.
It's really, really weird it was. And I've compensated, right? I mean, every track, even this is sort of rigged, so it only plays in mono. But that kind of thing with the music and sort of the developing, there's all sorts of stuff going on in that. I don't see a single We Are Kin sound.
No.
Your voice sticks out beautifully, and it's distinctive, and it fits really well for me. I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen next. I really haven't seen what you're going to do with it. Because I see something growing. I don't see third album being a difficult album. I see the third album sort of being the hatching of the egg.
Yeah, it'll be like the kind of the truest that it would be, because we would have written it in the room all together. And that would sort of be quite a true reflection then of,
it will come across,
all of our influences. And I think all our individual influences are in there anyway, but I think it'll be even more so with whatever we start recording next.
Yeah.
So rocker,
slap bass,
gospel, folk, 80s prog.
Yeah. Basically War of the Worlds.
Yeah, that's too often.
Too far. Yeah, that is the whole point with it though. That's kind of, it's the next one is not going to be an exercise in recording to start with, and what we've even talked about going somewhere else to record just to try something different. Like we'll write the material here and maybe goes to a place where.
Take it away for a week.
Go somewhere where we can set up recording. Maybe even go to a studio maybe, or maybe go to somewhere like in the countryside.
That's one of those things you sort of say, and then
I know a nice little place in Wales.
That's my point. Yeah, we've got those places we can try. We don't have to do what we've done before.
That vaguely sounds like going out into the country to get your heads together.
Yeah.
See if we can survive in each other's pockets for a little bit.
It was alright for Zeppelin. It ruined Genesis. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway was not a happy album, man.
No.
Yeah, but
it wasn't the first time they did that. They've done that before. They've gone away. I mean, when Hackett joined and Collins joined, they went away and hammered out together for quite a while. And But
if you got the luxury to do it, that's kind of the thing, is that we're all, this is the weird era. Like, me and Leah got kids. We've all got responsibilities and jobs and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because you work with the time that you have. If me and Gary have joked about this for years. If we had 37 hours a week, we'd probably come up with crap, because we kind of just like, it becomes the routine.
Yeah.
Part of us, what we write, is probably a result of the fact that we do what we do outside. And all
So
that sort of stuff.
you're more or less the product of sort of the modern state of music. I mean, the modern state of music is really, really weird. And I think it's going through a transitionary period where the big labels are more or less dying on their feet. What does success look like?
I think, like for me, it would just sort of be the opportunity to sort of be gigging in sort of like decent venues, like not the OT, but like really sort of like some of the venues in Manchester, like Gorilla or the Ritz and places like that, like good support slots. It would be nice if someone came up to us and said, "Oh, here's £1 million," but like
covering expenses would be nice.
It's just sort of having fun with it, and and playing live is really fun, I think. And once you do play together more often, you can read each other on stage really well. It just becomes like second nature. So I think if we're just sort of getting the opportunity to do that sort of thing, that'd be good.
Oh, I agree. I think for me, it's being able to play on a stage big enough to prance about on. To be brutally honest,
money to see that.
Well, keep your hands in your pocket, because it'll happen. I think, because I've the last couple of gigs, you think, I've got to go. Dan's seen me messing about, and I do it, and that's what I enjoy, just messing about on stage. And I like that. And if the people who are there want to join in and enjoy it too, then that's what success is for me. Absolutely.
I'm going to go at Dan.
Mine's dead simple, really. I would love to be able to put food on my table and pay for my home with music. And if that meant the fact that sort of from like an album perspective, like creative process, we made stuff that we loved, that people loved, and we got remunerated for it, that'd be amazing. The alternative to that is working with other people who are larger in sort of their scope, and being part of what they do, and then supporting my family that way. And then even further than that, session stuff. But I think that for me it would just be awesome to be able to come home or be at home while being a musician, and not be, because the thing about work is, if it's not something you love, you're giving someone a transaction of your time, aren't you? In return to go home.
It's called wage slave.
Exactly, and it's just that cycle of here's 40 hours of my life, and then that means I have that place back there, and that's the transaction you've given. To have that, but with this, that would be ideal. The problem is I think that gap feels bigger than it maybe was some years ago, but it maybe
the world's moved on a lot. Right, and last but not least, Gary?
For me, it's recognition. Actually, it's Prog magazine or an esteemed reviewer picking up our album and saying, "This sounds amazing. This is brilliant," and that validation. Someone else hearing how they think it's good. As good as I think it is, because I wouldn't have released it if I didn't think it was good. I would have kept going until it was good enough. It's that recognition for me. It's just someone validating that it's not just me who thinks this is good, and not just someone, but then you say, I have got a fan base. This album has sold, 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever. Number you can pluck out of the air. It's sold this many because this many people like it, and it's got a buzz about it. That to me would be what I would see success as. That recognition.
All of those things are really nice in their own way. Actually, I like all of it. Yeah.
That seems like a reasonable place. You want to give recognition to who? And his charity? Is it Al?
Alex. Our co-conspirator, Alex Dunedin.
And who's not present in the room.
He's not present in the room. Alex
but in spirit, apparently.
Alex likes to turn up randomly.
Always in my head.
Yeah, he's always in our heads, isn't he? Owlite is sort of he's an old friend of mine. My partner introduced me to him when we first started dating, and he's been a part of our lives. My kid's godfather and stuff, and he runs a project called Ragged University, and it's basically about sharing knowledge, and it's all about people getting together and discussing things they're interested in, and that formulates in ways like, you know, we'll set up an event in a pub. Happens at the Castle in Manchester when it happens here in Manchester, the Castle Hotel, and just two people get up and talk about something they're passionate about, and then people talk about it, and that's it. It's dead basic, and he's created an online resource. If you go to raggedonline.com, and it's just full of information, articles he's written, and he's interested. It's essentially he's interested in anything and everything, and anybody can get involved and write about things they want to write about. They can get up and do talks in front of people up in Scotland, here in Manchester.
Sounds a bit like the TED Talks type.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of. That's
Yeah.
actually kind of what. Yeah, and it's that, and it's the ethos is from the whole ragged school movement in the UK, and where our comprehensive school system came from, of just being from philanthropy and just sort of getting people together to share knowledge, to improve education and to improve living conditions and so on. And he's the humblest guy you meet, and that's partly why. I know we've talked about him quite a bit tonight, but working with him is a real privilege because he brings a real honesty about everything he does, and he's devoted his entire life to his project that he runs, and it's basically him. And the whole We Are Kin thing and the way it came about happened at a similar time to him working on his project, and they probably wouldn't exist without each other in a weird kind of way, which is kind of funny. But yeah. So I just wanted to say, people should check it out. Ragged University.
Right, give me the link.
I will do.
Right, so where can people buy this album?
They can buy it from Bad Elephant Music, or you can go to wearekin.bandcamp.com. And the album is, as we said, is out on the 8th of July, which is tonight, the night you are listening to it.
Right, okay, and I suppose that's an appropriate moment to say good night from...
Yeah, I've been Gary Boast. So yes, good night.
Yeah, good night. Buy the album. Thanks.
You're supposed to say your name, Emma.
Oh, and Emma, yeah.
Emma.
Yeah.
And it's good night from Lee. Thanks very much.
Good night from Dan.
And I've been Emma Roebuck, and this has been Northern Lights, We Are Kin, and I Know album launch special. See you next Thursday, folks.